On this week's Back of the Grid, a quick look at what next year's going to look like for Colton Herta, a rare penalty decision overturned, and a look ahead to Baku. Hello everyone, welcome to Back of the Grid. I'm Chris, joined as ever by Tom.
Hello.
We're recording a bit earlier in the week than usual, but actually have some things to turn about and some breaking news on a weekend, which is extremely rare.
It's so early in the week, it's not the new week yet.
No, it's not actually race week yet.
No, but needs must. We are making the content.
We thought we'd take the opportunity to have a quick chat about Colton Herta. We kind of mentioned the possibility of what he might be doing next year a few weeks ago, but it's all been made official now that he is joining Cadillac as a test driver, will be leaving IndyCar, and is going to be joining the Formula 2 grid next year, which is, it's really interesting because, so next year he will have 34 super license points, which would leave him short of a full super license. He could, in theory, have stayed with IndyCar, done 6 FP1 sessions for Cadillac in F1, and that would have been enough to top him up to a full super license. But he's made the decision to leave IndyCar and fully immerse himself in, you know, the European-based racing series. He's going to do a season of F2. And you know what? I've a couple of weeks ago we talked about this, and I said I'm maybe not as big a Colton Herta fan as a lot of people are. From seeing people who know more about him and IndyCar talking, I maybe am wrong on that, but I've got a huge respect for him for doing this, whether it works out or not. Like, he could very easily have stayed in IndyCar, had a good old long career, probably picked up a title or two if things went well for him. Mm-hmm. But he's not. He's taking the much harder route to try and chase the F1 dream, making the more difficult choice. And yeah, you've got to take your hat off to him for doing that.
Yeah, and I think there's logic to the way he's deciding to do it. I think, yes, there are technically easier ways he could have picked up his license points. He doesn't have to go to Formula 2 with being as close as he is to his 40 points that you need total, isn't it, to get the license. So he doesn't need to do it this way, but I think himself has mentioned the fact that, you know, he wants to be out on the kind of circuits that Formula 1 would be racing on, out in race weekends that are going to give him a similar environment to F1 because of it being an F1 support series. He needs to see if he can adapt his skills to that. So yeah, I think rather than just scraping by to get to the points over the course of another year in IndyCar and then maybe not being able to transition, if he is going to transition and it's going to work, this is probably the best opportunity, or best way, should I say, of giving it the best shot, and making sure he does make the most of it. It's interesting because of Perez and Bottas being on multi-year deals, according to the stuff that was released. So it's, I mean, in order to get enough super license points from F2 alone, I think he'd need to finish about 8th in the championship, which, you know, depending on how well he adapts to the difference in car and the type of circuits that F2 runs on, I think, getting into the top 10 is achievable, but he's got to get a little bit further than that to get enough points. I suppose a top 10 finish with some FP sessions for Cadillac,
potentially
would kind of still work out. It's still doable that way, but I think he at least at minimum needs to be getting some of the points from F2 to prove that it's worthwhile. But then the other side of this is I think that after this season, a huge chunk of his points then drop off. Because am I not right in saying that the big chunk of points he's got is from the stronger finishes in IndyCar that he had like 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was. And if he doesn't get the super license points this year, he's going to lose a big chunk from that. So he'd kind of need a strong F2 finish to compensate for, I think it's about 20 points that he loses at the end of this season. I think.
I think the way it works though is that if he gets the 8th place he needs next season, he will then have, because it's over a 3-year period, I think, isn't it? The points.
It is, yeah.
Calculated. Yeah. So he will have the
I
enough points over the 3-year period for the super license. At that point, I think he can apply for and be granted one, and then maybe be made a reserve driver. They won't then take the license off him if he then spends the year as a reserve driver.
Yes.
And he isn't scoring more points. It's not like you have to constantly keep scoring points to keep the license.
That side of it, fine. I was meaning more that he's either got to, at minimum, do the FP sessions,
right,
or get the good results, because if he doesn't earn the 6 points he needs by the end of the season, there's a big chunk that drop off that he did manage to gather from IndyCar.
So if he needed to do a second F2 season, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
if he needed to do a second F2 season,
and if he needed to do a second F2 season because of obviously having to wait for Bottas and Perez, if he does take a little while to get up to speed and doesn't pick up any significant super license points this year, they're probably going to be trying to cram it into FP sessions in the Cadillac to make sure he at minimum gets to that 40 so that he can get the license and then hold on to it. Although what would be interesting is, has anyone that's already got a super license ever raced in F2, and can you even do that once you get your super? I can't see why you couldn't do it, but I assume there'll be people with enough points to have a super license racing in F2, because first, second, third now all give you enough alone from a single year, don't they?
Yeah.
So if you finish in the top 3 of Formula 2, you're guaranteed a super license for the following year if you want one. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a handful of people who have ever raced in F2 with enough points already for a super license since they changed that. But I wonder if once it's a bit like the reigning champion thing, isn't it? Obviously, if you win F2, that would be yet another predicament for Cadillac, is if he did come in and was absolutely on it from day one and he wins that F2 series, they're stuck in a position where he'd have to go do Super Formula or something, like a Red Bull driver. Yeah. They'd be stuck.
Yeah.
Or does he go back to IndyCar for a year just to wait it out until Bottas or Perez get replaced?
My suspicion is, given the Bottas and Perez, they've said multi-year deals, that to me says at least 2 for both.
Yeah.
I think that the plan probably is, if he gets enough super license points in his first season in F2, great, he'll get his super license and he'll then just sit around as a reserve driver, do a bunch of FP1s. If he doesn't get them in the first season, then maybe he'll do a second season of F2. And it's interesting as well, because I think it kind of puts a good pressure on Bottas and Perez as well. It's kind of basically saying to them, you've both got 2 years. Here's the guy that's probably going to replace one of you. Go prove that it has to be the other one and not you, basically. Which I think is a good pressure to put on drivers. No one should ever be too comfortable in their seats.
Which is
cool.
It'll be interesting with both of them as well, because I feel like Perez has somewhat struggled with that pressure from a Red Bull. I'm just going to say Toro Rosso, because that's what most people have always known him as, and they've had so many names recently. But Red Bull versus junior team, I feel like Perez sort of maybe succumbed to the pressure of knowing that there's young drivers itching to get promoted, and a lot of talk around, will Perez get switched? That seemed to affect Perez somewhat, as it seems to affect anyone in that second Red Bull seat. And then Bottas to a little bit of a degree the season where Russell was doing pretty decently in the Williams and Bottas was still in the Mercedes, and you had this whole dynamic of them finding each other on track, and I'm not saying it was all Bottas, like cracking under pressure, because there were definitely mistakes from Russell as well in that. But you could almost tell that Bottas was looking over his shoulder at this kid's going to replace me.
He knew
in the
that
next
was his
year or two.
replacement the whole time.
He just knew. So it would be interesting to see how they both handle a Colton Herta sitting in the background driving around in F2, especially if he lands in F2 and he is like competitive in that first season. Which, I mean, looking at Colton and his his previous years at IndyCar, with F2 being a spec series, I would say that there's a very good chance he could come in and be competitive, because there will be similarities there. I think one of the big differences probably is that because of the levels of the series, I think the F2 teams don't develop what the bits that are available to them in terms of setup and engineering as much as IndyCar teams do, because they're just the different levels of teams. It's a different level of series. So there may be an element of Colton having to come in and adjust to a car that works in a particular way. It's Prima he signed for, isn't it?
It's not been confirmed
or has
yet.
It not
that
been
was
confirmed?
The rumor for a while, but I've read rumors of
it.
I mean, Prima are really struggling at the moment and haven't been the force they used to be. So I think they're still shopping around a little bit, because the team he lands in is going to make a difference. I mean, ironically, the way Formula 2 cars drive is probably as close to an Indy car as it is to a Formula 1 car these days. Like, their F2 cars are not very representative of what F1 is these days. And, he's used to wrestling around cars without power steering. So, I mean, it's exciting. Like, I'm really excited to see how it pans out for him and how he gets on. It's going to be great for F2. Like, there's going to be so many more eyes on F2 next season because of his presence.
And I mean, it's good for the feeder series as well in general, from an American viewership standpoint. Like, we know that the sport of F1 is regaining a following in the US because of the number of races that are over there, things like Drive to Survive and etc. The Cadillac deal and them coming onto the grid is obviously going to help. But to then have someone going from a premier American series to say, well, I'm going to go jump into this Formula One feeder series, as it basically is, it will be really interesting to see if many of the IndyCar fans start picking up races. I'm not saying that everyone will sit and watch every race. Like, I don't sit and watch every single IndyCar race, but I keep a much closer eye on it in recent years because of the number of either XF1 drivers or even XF2 drivers that have not quite managed to win themselves an F1 contract have gone over there and been pretty decent at times. Like, it's something that you keep an eye on. So it'd be really interesting to see how that translates the other way with someone like Colton coming across to F2 with the hope of getting into F1.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it pans out.
Yeah.
Right, a quick other bit of news to mention, which actually was breaking today, surprisingly. And that is that we knew Williams were asking for a review of the penalty Carlos Sainz received in Zandvoort. He got a 10-second penalty and 2 license points for the collision with Liam Lawson. That review has happened, and the stewards have actually overturned it, which is extremely rare for these kind of reviews. The report, I'll quickly run through the report. They said the stewards agree with Williams' characterization of the collision as a racing incident. The stewards are satisfied the collision was caused by a momentary loss of control by car 30, which is Lawson, but no driver was wholly or predominantly to blame. They're basically going to say that both cars contributed to it, but neither can be held wholly to blame. The stewards said they have no power to change the penalty that was served during the race. They did note that the gap ahead of Sainz was 17 seconds at the end, so it would make a difference anyway. And he's also had the 2 penalty points removed from his license, which is great. Like, that all seems correct and kind of matches how we assessed the thing at the time, doesn't it?
Yeah. So now after Baku, they'll revoke Behrman's penalty from Monza.
I mean, yeah, I wonder if Hatter now, like, hang on a second.
Do you know? I'd love if they're saying we have no control over the penalty that was given out during the race in Zandvoort for the 10 seconds. So Sainz gets a 10-second head start in Baku.
Seems fair, right?
That evens it out a little bit. Let Carlos Sainz have a 10-second head start. Or
that's
or
completely
like
fair.
deduct 10 seconds from his race time in Baku and just see if it gives him any positions.
Yeah, that seems completely fair. Let's do it. Speaking of Baku, should we have a little look ahead to it and make some predictions? And all
Yeah,
of that
let's do
jazz?
some storylines. Let's do that.
So I guess the big one this weekend is that McLaren can wrap up the constructors' title this weekend, which is a crazy thing to be saying in
Yep.
September. So a 1-2 or a 1-3 for them would guarantee the title. If they don't get that, any result where they outscore Ferrari by 9 and aren't outscored by Mercedes by any more than 11 will be enough for them. It feels pretty achievable, doesn't it? I think it's going to take a pretty wild result for them to not wrap it up this early.
Yeah, I think the only thing that might go against them a little bit here is the fact that I think a lot of teams still go relatively low downforce here, same as they would Monza. Not to the same extremities as Monza, but with it being lots of long straights and then just hard on the anchor 90-degree turns, I think a lot of teams do lean more towards that Monza setup traditionally. So that I think the fact that they don't go as extreme as that will probably work in McLaren's favour. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Max and maybe the Ferraris at least sniffing round, disrupting that. And I suppose the other thing to bear in mind is that it's literally walls everywhere here. You've got kind of two factors, which is it's so high speed for so long, which can lead to some pretty disastrous failures as we've seen over the years, in terms of like engines, tires, etc. But then also the fact that it's a street circuit, it's walled, and although it's wider than a lot of other street circuits, the corners themselves are pretty tight, and it's so many times every year you see people trying to go wheel to wheel and it not ending well because of how tight some of the corners are. So there's every chance that McLaren could be their worst enemy in making this work, and you've got the likes of Max and Charles and maybe even Lewis to a degree, but definitely the other two sniffing around at trying to pick up the pieces. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I mean, it's crazy that we're talking about a constructor winning the title this early again, but they've done good over the last 2 or 3 years. You can't hold that against them. It's akin to the Mercedes nailing the power units early in their dominance, and akin to Red Bull having an extremely well engineered aerodynamic package for the early era of this current set of regulations. And McLaren have done well over the last few years to not only close that gap, but then go beyond it and kind of excel with the changes more into the ground effect side of things. So yeah, I think in a way it's a little bit of a shame that year on year we end up with one team winning it just so clearly. And it would be nice for the constructors to go a little more to the wire more often, but I mean, fingers crossed we'll get something more like that from next year with the amount of changes that we're seeing. Maybe even get Cadillac in the mix. Who knows? But yeah, I think it's highly likely, to answer the actual question, it's highly likely that McLaren do win the constructors here. And to answer the question specifically of can anyone stop them, probably McLaren themselves are the ones that would stop them. Like, it's going to be the drivers. It's going to be Lando and Oscar that have that power in their hands. So.
Moving sort of more back to the midfield, which is getting kind of closer and closer to that midfield fight. Is there anyone in particular we think Baku might suit more than others?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because obviously coming off the back of Monza, as you say, it's going to be similar low downforce setups. But then if you look at the Monza results, like we had a Williams, a Sauber, and a Racing Bulls all in the top 10. So
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, last year, I'm trying to think who the best sort of midfield teams
probably was, well,
were.
no, last year Alonso was
Albon did
6th,
all
and then the
right.
Williams was 7th and 8th.
Yeah,
So
yeah, Albon did all right. And who was in the other Williams at that point?
Colapinto then.
Colapinto, yeah.
Yeah.
And Fernando as well. So yeah, that's. Did Behrman got some points for Haas at that point, didn't he as
did,
well?
yes. He
Yeah.
finished 10th.
So there's a handful of names that might do okay here this year because
I can see Williams doing well.
Yeah, I think Williams are definitely doing what they can to hold on to the strong start they had. Like they've taken the gauntlet being thrown down by the likes of Sauber and Aston Martin to heart, I think, and they're doing what they can to make sure that even if they're not going to be updating the car much, everything else they do is as on point as possible to maintain that position. So yeah, I think it'll be it's going to be them and Aston. I think are sort of like the best of the rest when it comes to those midfield kind of battles for this circuit.
I mean, Aston had a disaster in Monza, but that wasn't necessarily down to the car pace. There were other factors at play there.
I mean, Alonso's suspension disintegrated, didn't it?
And then Stroll
and he was on good pace. He was on good pace.
He was on good pace,
happened.
And Stroll was looking good for points, and then he had a 30-second pit stop, I think. So
yeah.
If I can sort that out, that might be good for points as well.
Yeah.
And then last point, which is sort of slipping a bit of news in here as well. Yuki Tsunoda, I'm keen to see him sort of having a better weekend of it. The team have basically in recent days said, you've got that seat to the end of the season. Like we're behind you, we're backing you, we want to see you succeed, sort of thing. So hopefully the kind of not having that you'll get replaced risk hanging over him will help him figure things out a bit and just keep moving forward. Like there are signs of improvement for him. He's been picking up points recently, but he definitely needs to do a bit more, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one with Yuki because, for example, over the course of this season, he's only had 1 points finish in the last, I'm gonna say, 10 races or there or thereabouts.
In a good while.
He's got the Dutch 9th, and I genuinely can't remember the last time he got points. He had that little run when he first joined the team, didn't he? So you're going to be pushing 10 races since he last had points. Well, sorry, no. I'll correct myself. He's only had that 1 points finish in the last 10 races or whatever it is. So you're pushing 10 races without a double points finish. And, when he is getting points finishes, they're like 9ths and 10ths. So part of me also wants to be a bit harsh and say, the Dutch points are off the back of like both Ferraris going out and stuff like that. Like, those two, that momentary lapse from Lewis going into the wall and Leclerc getting clattered and taken out of the race, and Norris, the engine going, like those things don't happen, and he's back in his fairly average 13th. He seems to pick up in recent times.
You've got to be there to take advantage, and you've got to see the flag. So there's that going at least.
Yeah, I mean, he's finishing races. I'll give him that. He's finishing races. We know the car's not great. I mean, I still love the clips of Max essentially saying Hadjar doesn't want to be in this seat. It's not for you, dude. And like the stuff in the press conferences where like people were saying, "Oh, do you think if Isaac came to Red Bull, you'd be good teammates?" And Max would be like, "No, I hate the guy. I don't want him in the car." And Isaac like, "Yeah, I don't like Max. I don't want to be in a team with Max." Just like, yes, it's all tongue in cheek banter, but it is just funny that they're like kind of taking it to that level to essentially say, "I don't want to be moving teams right now." Yeah, so I mean, hopefully Yuki does all right here. Hopefully,
it's been nice to see him in the fight with other teams as well.
Yeah.
Right. Should we make some predictions?
Yes, let's. So for those of you who are newer to the show, Chris and I will make 5 predictions for the race weekend, and it's always possible for you to join in at home by heading to the website at backofthegrid.com. Where if you head over there, you can submit your predictions for what we go through, and they'll be open as you're listening to this. We will make ours. We're doing them on a Saturday evening, so literally, almost literally a week in advance. Not quite. We're qualifying would have finished by now if it was race weekend, but this is one of the earliest times we've ever tried to predict a race weekend. So whatever happens during the week, we can't be held accountable for. But based on these predictions, something crazy will probably end up happening midweek, which ruins them completely. But luckily, you at home have right up until qualifying starts. That's when the closing point is. And if you are talented enough to achieve a perfect 5 out of 5, you will win a prize. So even if you've not played before, it's worth heading to backofthegrid.com and getting involved. So I will kick us off, I guess, by saying fastest in Q3. I'm going to go with Max Verstappen. How about you?
I'm also not going to go for McLaren. I'm going to go for Charles Leclerc.
Ooh, interesting.
Same as last year.
Chuck Leclerc. Race winner? Do you think he converts it, or do you think the McLarens go get their win to move towards the title?
Also going to say same as last year, Oscar Piastri.
I see. We've basically done the same thing there. We've gone for guys who are close on one lap pace and can challenge the McLarens, and we're both going with Piastri just because that's what happened last year. So yeah, I'm doing the same there. What about first DNF, Chris? What are your thoughts there?
Probably going to be a lap one, I hear, isn't it? Messy old lap one.
Can be, yeah, can be sometimes.
I'm going to go for Ollie Behrman, I think.
Ooh. I've got Behrman. I think Behrman might get a point or two, so I'm not going to go there. Let's have a think. It's going to be someone in the mid-pack.
It's kind of what I'm thinking.
I'm going to go Lawson. Yeah. Lawson's not always great wheel to wheel, and he's doing all right generally qualifying. Like when the car's working for him, he's qualifying in that midfield type of area with the occasional Q3. I think it's going to be someone like that, so I'm going to say Lawson. Number of finishes, I should have probably checked what
16
number of
last year.
Ooh, okay. All. Is that common? It probably is, isn't it? Sort of 16, 17 finishes. I'll go with 17. I'll be a little bit more optimistic than last year. What about you?
I'm going to go same as last year again and say 16, I think.
Okay. So you're just going for a rinse repeat.
Almost.
And then random driver. Let me see who we have. We have. This is interesting considering the storylines.
Oh, no.
Yuki Tsunoda.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to start filling in my predictions now so I don't forget. Where do you think Yuki's going to be, Chris?
9th.
Wow.
Back in for some points.
That's brave. I'm not being so brave, and based on literally what I was thinking about when we were talking about him a minute ago, I'm going to be moderately optimistic and say he'll finish slightly ahead of his average and he'll be in 12th. Oops, I've written those in the box the wrong way around, but yeah. There we go. So that is us. That is our predictions. As I said before, you can get involved if you want to at backofthegrid.com. Predictions will be open now, so you can go submit yours right now, and they'll be open right up until qualifying starts on Saturday, at which point they'll lock. You can keep an eye on your predictions through the weekend. You'll be able to see them there, and then the results usually get updated on the Monday for you to be able to see where you've come in the standings and if you've managed a clean sweep. But that is that for that.
And that's about it for this week, I think. Brief one, but Looking forward to the race. In more than a week's time for us. We'll be back next week, though, to review everything that happens in Baku. Hopefully, it's another good one, which we tend to get good races at Baku, so I'm optimistic.
Well done, Baku.
Well done, Baku. As Tom says, you can go to backofthegrid.com to join in with the Predictions League, Fantasy League, all of that stuff. You can get in touch with us in all the usual social media places or via the website. But that is about it. So thank you, as always, for joining us. And until next time, goodbye.
Bye, everyone.